Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing with me, Jonny McFarlane. I'm hosting today with Mr. Chris Jack. Welcome, Chris. I understand you've had something of a late night.
Yes, only part of that was Rangers. But back at 12 by the time we got home last night, a long post-match presser from the manager, and by the time we managed to get all the quotes done, got everything sorted. So got back up the road back at 12. That darling daughter decided that she didn't want to go to sleep last night. She had the battle fever on as well. So 4 o'clock in the morning by the time I managed to get to my bed. So slightly weary this morning, but coming off a big result last night. So plenty of adrenaline to see me through the next few hours, hopefully.
Yeah, Chris, I was watching it here in the house and I have to say, felt like a pivotal win. It feels like watching it last night that when you come round to your 5 games that won the title, this will be one of them if Rangers get over the line, because the pressure was on. I thought Aberdeen looked like they were rocking for the first 5 or 10 minutes, but I think they found their structure. As Neil Warnock said after the game, centre halves did very well. They weren't trying to build out for the back or messing about. They were just clearing their lines and getting back into a structure that Rangers were finding difficult to break down. Now, they did create a few chances, and to be fair, Rabbi Matondo as well, hang your head in shame, son, despite your opening goal. That was a miss and a half after a brilliant bit of play. Tearing your hair out with that one, because at 2-0, Aberdeen are done. They just don't have... I don't think they have the players to go and score 3 at Ibrox in terms of around Miovski, because certainly Miovski could. So, I mean, how do you assess it in the cold light of the morning, Chris? The emotions were running high. I thought the crowd, I mean, as I say, I wasn't at the game, but coming through the telly, it sounded like Ibrox was basically having one of those nights that we know Ibrox can have.
Mm-hmm. I think it felt like a big game before it, and it feels like a big result after it. You sometimes, as I say, Johnny, you get these moments in a season. It's not quite a turning point. It's not quite pivotal, but it plays into that narrative of Rangers are definitely onto something here. I think it was interesting the manager referencing post match about the setback they had. I think he's almost been waiting for this, because the last few weeks they have gone fairly smoothly. They've won the games sometimes really comfortably, sometimes they've had to grind some of them out. But I think last night when Aberdeen scored in the shock of half time, it was then, well, how are people going to react? How are the fans going to react? Are they going to stick with us? Are they still going to have faith and trust in us to go and get the job done? Do the players have that faith and trust in themselves and each other to still get the job done? And came out at the start of the second half, showed no ill effects of losing, which was a really, really poor goal, it has to be said. It's not the type of goal that Rangers should be losing. But there was no ill effect there. They just stuck to the plan, continued, had Aberdeen on the back foot, and you kind of felt that the goal was coming. There was no Ibrox getting really tense and getting really tetchy. Yes, people were, passes go astray and people are a bit upset, and there's the odd groan, but overall it was still everyone pulling in the right direction. The manager's spoken quite a lot about this synergy and this relationship, and how he's managed to rebuild that in such a short space of time is arguably one of his greatest achievements yet, because this is a team that people had no trust in, that they had no faith and no belief in. And 4 months on, it's a side that could easily go on and win the Premiership this season. So I think in so many aspects, Clement has done a terrific job at just like turning the whole thing 180 degrees. I think that trust and faith that the players have in each other and the fans now have in them, I think that's arguably one of his biggest achievements so far.
Yeah, I noticed that Stefan van der Heyen was on Twitter last night putting out this, well, what's essentially become a Rangers mantra, which is everything from everyone. I see this all the time. It's almost becoming something that they're using as a strap line for the season, and I think it really does capture the togetherness that you see in this club, because the board, the management, the fans, everyone's singing from the hymn sheet, and it's more than just results, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tangible, there's a structure to the performances that make you understand why results are coming. You know, it's not like, well, will it come unstuck next week? It's a bit of a juggernaut, and it's a bit of a juggernaut because Rangers are dominating most games and always look dangerous in the forward areas, despite not having that killer number 9 that I think we all believe that will take this team to the next level. Having said that, I think you're starting to see now Fabio Silva coming onto a game and look a little bit more sharp and a little bit more understanding of the story, as Clement would put it. He mentioned in the post-match, which you can see on our YouTube channel alongside Neil Warnock's post-match comments, which were predictably entertaining. I think it's got about 25,000 views already. You know, that little bit of praise, I think, for Silva was quite telling, because I thought when he came on, he looked the part, he looked very dangerous, and he took the team to probably a different level. Okay, Dessers had worked the defence hard. He'd given them a hard time. They're tired. Silva comes on fresh legs. What's your take on that? Do you think that he can come in and be that man that Rangers crave? Because if he is, then surely this is going to be a very successful season.
Myself and Josh sat last night. Ibrox was empty. It was only us and the ground staff that was there. And he mentioned Fabio Silva, and almost got giddy with excitement at the fact that he could go and talk about him, because he was just really, really impressed by him when he came off the bench, and I have to say I was as well. I think I know the manager's going through this phase of, he's been very careful with game time. He's been careful with the match minutes on certain players, trying to get everyone up to the same level. But I think if you're to say to fans, look, give us your strongest 1 to 11, regardless of fitness, just give us your best team for a must-win game. Silva has to get the nod now. I think he's a really, really accomplished player. He was unlucky, I thought, not to get himself a goal last night. Had the flicked header that was just by the far post. Had the chance late on, and he pulled it low just across that same post. Obviously, if one of those goes in, it's a lot more comfortable if a Rangers in it than it was in the end. But I thought his hold-up play was excellent. He's got a lovely touch. He's got real vision. And I think he's got a work rate that many people perhaps didn't expect. I think people maybe had this preconceived idea of him. He'll come in and he'll have the flicks, he'll have the tricks, but he won't then have the endeavour to go and back it up. He certainly got that. He gets about. He's taken a few punts in his time in Scottish football already. He just gets back up and gets on with it. So he looks every inch a £30 million player playing in Scottish football. I don't think he'll be here next season, unfortunately, but he's certainly going to have a huge role to play in the months that he is here. He's going to have such a huge role to play. And so for me, if I was picking him 1 to 11, he's the guy that gets that number 9 spot every day of the week. But I do understand why the manager is being a bit more kind of mixing and matching in terms of certain areas, because he has to keep Dessers on side. He's going to need Dessers over the course of the season. Silva's not going to play every minute of every game. We know the situation with Roof and Danilo. It's the two of them. That's all Rangers have got. That's what they have to get by with. So the manager has to find a way of keeping Dessers sharp, keeping the confidence up, and ideally getting them a goal. We also didn't get one last night. The game at the weekend looks an ideal chance for him, hopefully, to get him another one.
Take a couple of comments now, Chris. One from Borna Bear. I would say to Borna, be careful with this sort of thing. Might get you in trouble. Come on, the Hibs. He says, obviously, Celtic playing at Easter Road tonight, and that's going to be a really interesting one in terms of the destination of the title race. Hibs are not in good form whatsoever, it is fair to say, but Celtic are not exactly firing on full cylinders themselves, and I think if they were to drop points tonight, then you would see a very interesting week, given they've got St Mirren and Paisley on Sunday. I know that's a cup game, but still, that is not an easy one. That's not the fixture you want when you're having a bit of an up and down time of it. Another one in from Blue Ninja. Why was Miovski never much of a transfer conversation compared to Shankland? Overall, a better prospect. Chris, I've got to say, I spent a lot of time banging the Shankland drum, and I feel a little bit slightly red-faced about it, having watched these last 90 minutes, because I have to say, at 24, Bojan Miovski, who is, by the way, quick as a whippet and strong, I have to agree. I think this guy's the best striker in this league, and I think if Aberdeen are going to say 6-7 million, I think they'll get it. Now, that might put him outside a Rangers price bracket, but what a player this boy is.
I think that's why he wasn't in that conversation. I think people perhaps realised the price that Aberdeen would want and the price that Rangers would be willing to pay on any striker during January. Those two numbers were always going to be too far ahead. Again, if you gave me the straight choice, you can have either Miovski or Shankland. For me, it's Miovski. I think he's a far better prospect. But because of his profile, it comes with a higher fee. We know Aberdeen are not going to be easy to deal with, arguably more difficult than Hearts would have been to deal with if Rangers had pursued Shankland. So I think he's probably out with the fee, unfortunately. I know Neil Warnock said last night he could go and score 30 goals this season. You wouldn't bet against him. He didn't really have a lot of service last night. He was feeding off scraps. The one chance he got, he put it away in the first half. Obviously, I didn't get anything in terms of a result for Aberdeen, but I thought he was really impressive once again. His goal against Celtic at the weekend, everything you want from a striker, a powerful, good finish, pace. So for me, he is a very, very talented player, but I fear that he will be out with Rangers price bracket. I just don't see Rangers be able to. I think they will have to go and strengthen that area of the pitch once again come the summer. You're easily looking at a whole new strike force. I just think whatever the budget's going to be, Miovski will unfortunately be too high. I think he's one of the ones we probably missed out on. If you wanted to sign him, it had to be last summer. As soon as you get to this summer, I just think he's out with the wages and the fee, unfortunately.
Yeah, if you go back a few decades there, Chris, even to the sort of Walter Smith era, the first era, Rangers and Aberdeen were clubs that did business with each other. I remember Stephen Wright arriving at Ibrox, David Robertson, and I know there's been the odd free transfer, Ryan Jacko, obviously, but I can't actually remember the last time there was direct business between the two clubs outside of someone going from Rangers to Aberdeen. In the case of Robbie McCrory, it's a player coming from Aberdeen to Rangers. That's a more difficult transition, probably, given the. I think it's fair to say over the last 10 years, while there's always been that animosity, social media has exacerbated it to a stage where it's almost like Rangers are absolutely public enemy number one, bar none up there. There's just absolute, total and utter hatred. So, you can totally understand, for example, if Rangers were interested, why Dave Cormack and Alan Burrows would just say, well, why would we sell him there? Because we'll get great credit if we sell him for 8, 9, 7, whatever million figure you want to put on it. Because people say that's the success of scouting, it's the player trading model in action. It's it's going to pay for more investment. Whereas if you sell him to Rangers, it'll all be about the sale. There'll be months of tabloid speculation, story after story, pissing off the fans day to day. It's kind of it's an all win for them.
He's a player that I would like Rangers to sign. He's a player I don't think Rangers will ever get the chance to sign, unfortunately. I think from Aberdeen's perspective, as you mentioned, Jonny, it's a great success in terms of their scouting. They've managed to go and pick him up. They brought him in. He's done really, really well for them. They will make a huge profit on him. But I think you'll see English interest, you'll see European interest. And if they can get 2 or 3 clubs interested in him, bit of a bidding war, the price goes up. So I think that probably takes him out with what Rangers would be willing to spend. But his record speaks for itself. As I thought his goal last night was really good. It was a soft one from Rangers to lose. You shouldn't be losing goals from straight balls, straight down the middle of your centre halves. But he held off goals and got the right side of him. Butland maybe at fault. He could maybe have stayed, but you have to give all the credit to Miovski for the way he finished it. I say thankfully it didn't earn Aberdeen anything on the night, but it's certainly done Miovski no harm whatsoever.
Sorry, I may have accidentally clicked on a comment with a slightly naughty word on it there and flashed it up for a second on screen. We'll pretend that didn't happen. Certainly don't endorse the comments. So listen, Chris, in terms of after the match, Philippe Clement come in. Obviously, listen, there's a lot of interest in what Neil Warnock's had to say because he's such a character, and he was just overall pretty happy. He made a couple of jokes in the press room. One in particular, he was asked, how far ahead he's looking. He says, "I'm 75, mate. We have to take it day by day at my age, which sent the press room into fits of giggles, I think. And you can see all that on the YouTube channel. But moving on to Philippe Clement, because that's kind of the more important comments really for the Rangers review going forward. In terms of the night itself, Chris, is it fair to say, sitting in that press room, he seemed like a contented man? You know, he's very intense, Philippe Clement. Anyone who spent any time with him will say that, you know, he's a nice man. He's a polite man. He's very courteous. He's not so far been a guy who you kind of have to really tread very, very carefully with, because he's not spiky. He's just direct.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought last night he seemed very relaxed, and that probably speaks to something.
It speaks to a man that knows how to get the job done. Now, it was something that he referenced pre-match in his press conference on Monday about he knows what it takes to get titles won. He's going to be asked about points gaps, goal difference, psychological. He's going to get asked all these title themed questions. His answer is going to perhaps vary on some of them, but it's going to be the same theme. He's not going to bite. He's not going to make bold statements of we'll go and do this or we'll do that, because he knows how title races unfold. He knows at some point there will be a slip up from Rangers. I don't think they're going to go and win every game between now and the end of the season. If they do, it would make life a whole lot easier, and it would be great. But he knows that there will be these twists and turns over the course of it. I think that the fact that he has been through that, not once, not twice, but 3 times back in Belgium, he's fully aware of how these things are going to unfold. So I know you mentioned last week about the progress that's been made, and he's told the players, now this is the quickest that he's got to this stage with a group of players. The players deserve a lot of credit for that. The manager deserves so much credit for it. He's not the type to take it. He won't accept lots of plaudits. Even when he got the manager of the month the other day there, it was all about the players, it was about the staff, it was about the whole thing has always been about the collective. We've seen the players mention that it's about the collective. But the job that he's done so far to turn around a team, a squad, a club almost in the space of 4 months, it's really quite something. And I say he is the main driver. It's obviously it takes a certain kind of individual to be Rangers manager. You have to have something about you, and I think what we've seen so far, Clement has definitely got that X factor, if you like.
Well, he's making it look easy, and we know it's not easy. Having spoken to Rangers managers in the past, it's definitely not easy, and that's a real credit to him, because he just looks elite. And I suppose the problem is going to be, Chris, if he continues like this, it's not going to be a long marriage, because people are going to come in for Philippe Clement, because he is. You saw what happened with Ange Postecoglou, who affected a similar sort of miracle in terms of turning around Celtic at a low ebb, and so far Clement has basically copied that level of achievement. So far, he's still got a long way to go. Still got a lot of trophies to pick up, but you'd be if you were an English Premier League club, it would be crazy if you weren't impressed by what he's done so far. And if you add in the background of title wins and trophies from Belgium, then he's always going to be someone I think that's going to be on people's radar. But that's for another day. That's me being probably a bit of a pessimist about it. Just going to nip to a comment from Magic Man 147, very kindly donated to the channel, and he's got some criticism for Ross McCausland. And I saw this on Twitter last night, and Magic Man also criticised and saying McCausland's decision making and end product are miles off it. Never takes a man on and always comes inside the pitch where it's congested. Needs to be better. Chris, he's a young player, and I think sometimes at Rangers, I think that the environment is tough for young players, because they get a lot of adulation when they first come into the team, and they can do no wrong. And then once that kind of dies down a little bit, everyone starts pulling apart and picking apart their game, and criticism can very quickly follow. I've seen it so many times now in my 40s, looking back to talented youngsters going right across the spectrum of my life, and I'm sure you have too. For example, you have Charlie Adam, who was one of the most talented Scottish players to play in this country, goes down to England and is a very, very good Premier League player who got moved to Liverpool and had a fantastic career, but got a lot of stick from Rangers fans because of his decision making. And I think that becomes even more difficult when you're a forward player because of the quality of forward players Rangers have traditionally had. Fans are looking at it and going, look, why is the decision making like this? I think just with these young guys, I think there needs to be an acknowledgement that they're going to take a little bit of time. I do agree there's problems in McCauslain's games. I'm not saying that Magic Man's not got a point here in some of this, but I also think, if you're at Motherwell and you have 100 games, where there isn't a focus really on you from the media, there isn't a focus on you from 50,000 fans, you can make your mistakes in an environment where you can quietly learn from them. But at Rangers, it's that mentality of ruthlessness that you need to just block it all out. And when you're 21 years old, well, I personally, I would have found that impossible at 21. Maybe now, I could, but I'm in my 40s. So I don't know how you kind of get round that without kind of explaining that whole context to people and say, well, this is why we need to just be a little bit more careful around youngsters. What's your feeling on it?
Ultimately, I think Ross McCausland is a better player today than when he made his debut. If you think back to that night in Limassol and then also played the St Mirren game, then the manager has come in and given him his chance. McCausland is a better player now because he has that experience. He's played European games. He's obviously got a medal. He's scored goals for Rangers. Could have potentially scored more. He's got assists. He's part of first team squad now. So all those boxes have been ticked. Right now, he's a better player than he was this time last week, last month, 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago. That's not to say he's perfect. I don't think he is perfect, but I think there's a progression there, and he will be better for it. As you mentioned, Jonny, there is this need. We talk young players up and up and up, and then we get to the crescendo, and then it's right. Let's try and find ways to bring them down and down and down again. I think that's probably exacerbated at a club like Rangers, where the pressure and the conversations are just so much more focused. But overall, I think McCausland has more than earned his place in the side. He wasn't man of the match last night, but I don't think he stunk the place out either. In terms of going wide sometimes and coming in sometimes, the fact that he came into the middle of the pitch last night, made the chance for the first goal. If he'd received that pass and decided, right, I'm going to go and hit the byline and try and get a cross in, he doesn't get a shot away. Goalkeeper doesn't parry it. Matondo then doesn't score. So I think he's got that variety. I'm sure that's something the manager has been speaking to him about.
It's also important people recognise that Rangers have a phenom at right back who, with space, will create chaos. Mm-hmm. So if McCausland's staying wide, then Tavernier has to come inside. Mm-hmm. You want him inside and outside. You want both, but McCausland has to come inside sometimes to free up Tavernier on the right-hand side and give him the space that he needs.
I think over the last few weeks, I think that relationship has improved again. It's not to say Ross's first name in the team sheet he has to play every single week. There will be times where the manager takes him back out and gives him a rest. I think that the fact I've now got Cortez, who I thought he was really bright again last night. Been interesting to see him playing from the right-hand side to see how effective is from there. We know the forward line, the forward areas, they're not perfect for Rangers. There's so much money has been spent on it, so much improvement could still be found from it. But McCausland, he's taking his chance. He was in the right place at the right time in terms of the manager change, injuries and other issues within the squad. He's come in. So overall, I think you have to rate the start to his Rangers career as very, very good. It's not to say it's perfect, but it's not to say he's the best thing ever. But let's not start chipping away and knocking down a boy who is playing for his boyhood club. He's signed a new long-term contract. He's made an international debut. It's been a remarkable few weeks and months for Ross McCausland. If there is a couple of weeks where it goes down the way, it's going to go back up the way. He's clearly a talented boy. He's got a bright future. So I think McCausland deserves all the plaudits that he's got. He also needs and deserves the support from the Rangers fans. Let's not be too quick to try and find faults and to try and knock him down. He deserves the same criticism as every other player within the squad. Just because he's young doesn't get him a free pass, but just because he's young doesn't mean you have to be extra hard on him.
I think it's almost like a twisted mentality, and here's how I'd put it, Chris. Right, looking back, you know, I would probably been in 2000 and whatever, 2006, 2005, 2007, would have been saying Stephen Smith. Is he good? Is he going to take Rangers to the next level? Chris Burke, is he going to take Rangers to the next level? Charlie Adam, he's always giving the ball away. And you look back now and you think all those players really contributed well as squad players. And instead of thinking of them as this guy is Rangers' right winger, if you think about them as part of the squad and contributing to the squad, and I think that's a better way of thinking about it. And you think about players like Leon King, McCausland, Lovelace, these guys, it puts less pressure on them if you think of them more as squad players as opposed to the right winger that's going to tear up Europe and take Rangers to the next level. I think it's almost like bring the expectation down a little bit, and that'll help these lads. It's an age-old problem, and listen, one of the things that makes Rangers such a captivating club for us to cover is the expectation, the demand, the culture of winning that goes back over 100 years. But at the same time, you have to probably be cognizant of that creates an atmosphere around the club that is very demanding for the players, and we've seen international players come and not really hit the ground running and struggle with the expectation and struggle with this idea of the great cliche of the Goldfish Bowl. So I think it just needs to be a little bit of a sort of an understanding and a temperance of expectation in a way. But I get what Magic Man's saying, and perhaps it's a little bit also about the lack of depth in the squad around that area. You're maybe seeing more of McCausland than Clement would absolutely like if he had a little bit more there. But I think with Cortez coming in, I think he can play either flank. Silva can play either flank if he's pushed. I think you're going to see a little bit more rotation in that area. So listen, Chris, we've done a really, really good gig on this. We're getting to the half an hour point. I just wanted to bring up someone that got in touch with me. Now, just to briefly touch back on the press conference last night, Neil Warnock did complain, jokingly, it has to be said, you wouldn't have maybe believed that by some of the stories that were floating about this morning, but jokingly about the Rangers ball boys. He was definitely had a smile on his face, and he was definitely being, what's the word, naughty, I don't know how you would pronounce it, Chris, mischievous is probably the best way. Sort of slightly criticising them. And I had a regular viewer, someone who keeps in touch with me on TikTok, Craig Marshall, be in touch, and he sent me a picture of his son, Noah, who was a ball boy last night, and I think he was pretty proud of his kid last night. So I thought I'd give him a shout out, because it's not every day you're savaged by Neil Warnock in a post-match press conference after being a ball boy at Ibrox. So there you go. That's one for him to pin up on the wall. He'd buy a paper this morning and get it framed. So well done, Craig, and well done, Noah, for that. Chris, anything else you'd like to touch on from the game that you thought was particularly interesting? Though I suppose the one last thing that maybe I would like to talk about is Tom Lawrence, who I just think every time I see him looks like a Rangers player. He just gives you something, doesn't he?
I thought he was really impressive. He wasn't one who I would have had in the side. I know myself and Josh did our team predictions. We both had Nico Raskin coming back in after the manager confirmed that Ryan Jack wouldn't play. But I thought Lawrence came in and was really, really impressive last night. The manager referenced that in his presser last night. He spoke about he's earned his chance and what he would then bring to the side. I thought he was covered so much ground. It was always head up. It was not breaking. I think he offers you that. He can break through the pitch in terms of his direct running, as we saw a few times. But he can make that pass. He can move the ball quickly. I thought that relationship between Lawrence, Lundstrom, and Cantwell was really effective last night. I thought all three in the middle of the pitch were great. Cantwell probably gets the man of the match just because of the goal. I thought again he covered so much ground. It was really, really good. But hats off to all three of the midfielders.
Yeah, excellent all night last night, I thought, and starting to get a real good balance in there. Listen, there's so many comments coming in, I actually can't even keep on top of them. I'm about 20 minutes ago. That's where I'm up to. So I'm just going to give up trying to keep up. Apologies to everyone whose comments I've missed. Derek is far better at this hosting gig than I am. I'm not a professional. I am just a I'm just an interloper here trying to cover some space. So I've done my best, but perhaps there's a good few of you that are frustrated with me. So I do apologise on that. There's a lot of people coming in asking about the refereeing last night. I'm going to give you a very brief summary. I think Sky covered the refereeing just about as broadly as you could possibly cover. So I don't really want to go into it but in too much detail. But what I will say is that I thought the referee overall didn't get too much wrong. I thought that the red card for me was a yellow, but I can see why he's given a red, and I can see why he's not overturned it. I don't think it's a big controversy. It's one of those that is marginal and is based on interpretation. So listen, I get why Rangers fans are really upset, but you're coming from a Rangers point of view, and Aberdeen fans think the exact opposite. They're coming at it from an Aberdeen point of view. I don't think it's one to get too het up about, and it didn't have an impact on the game in the end. As for the handballs, come on. That's all I'm going to say. Chris, would anything to add to that?
Handballs were not handballs. The Duke one was a yellow rather than a red.
Agreed.
And I think Sterling is perhaps slightly hard done by. I think if the referee gives a yellow in the first instance, I don't think it's then overturned to a red and going to the screen. I thought the manager's comments last night were very fair on. I thought he called it right. At first viewing, you maybe think he's gone in, studs up, and he's caught the boy high. He's not, as the manager said last night, he's caught him on his toes. I think he's maybe slipped in there as well. So I don't think there's anything. I think the manager, I think he called that fairly. Rangers can appeal. The manager said last night they're still not to discuss that as a club. So I think that'll be a decision they'll make over the course of the next couple of days, where they do or not. If they do, not convinced that it'll be overturned. But I can see why. I can see why Clement was upset by it. I can see why the fans are upset by it as well. I think it was slightly harsh.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's just one of those. It's going to divide people. I think it's got a chance of being overturned. I do. And again, if it does get overturned, there's going to be, on the Aberdeen side, massive amounts of controversy and vice versa. So it's just one of those. I'm getting slaughtered, Chris, for saying I thought Robertson got I was talking about the big decisions, not his overall performance. So Glasgow Rangers Nation saying, Jonny seriously didn't get much wrong. LOL! Clueless Hibs fan. Well, I think you'll all be Hibs fans tonight. That's all I'm going to say. And we'll call it a day there. Thanks, everyone, for listening to my nonsense. Thank you for Chris for coming along and smiling along at my gaffes as Derek comes back from the Arctic Circle. I think in the days ahead. I'm certainly hoping so. He's posting lots of nice pictures out there. Chris, I've never quite understood why someone would want to go to a sort of -20 port in the middle of nowhere, which is basically thick with snow, for their holidays. I don't quite. Is there something that I'm missing here?
He does like to go to obscure destinations, but on the plus point, I saw the Bolton game get called off after 9 minutes last night. So at least he is slightly further away from home, but probably closer to home than he would have been going all the way to Cambridge for 9 minutes worth of League One action last night. So it's probably done him a right turn.
Yeah, well, we look forward to getting Derek back, get some professionalism back to this podcast. But listen, guys, thank you all for tuning in, even the ones that are giving me grief. And I will catch up with you at some point soon. 1,195 on right now, which is fantastic. So thank you all. James Strachan, I don't know what that means, but it looks like we're getting some Aussie dollars. So thank you for that, James. That yellow bar, that's not something I've seen before. Interesting. So as always, guys, you can subscribe to the website. I think it's £4 for 4 months at the moment. Or you get a deal for £16 for the year. Loads of content on there. Chris has been hitting it out of the park with some amazing stuff on the new signings there. If you want to know anything about the new signings, get on there. You'll know more than you need to, because every single detail is covered, and you'll certainly be well placed to talk about them in the pub with your mates. And of course, there's all Josh's usual tactical stuff and all the rest that goes on there, including the latest news. And we have got also, just finally, a YouTube members channel. If you like the YouTube videos and you want some more, I think we do an extra 3 a week that Derek is basically taking care of. You get a Q&A, post-match presser, and reaction and whatever else comes to mind on that week. So there's plenty good content on there. Right, I'm going to get off because Amy McPhee is absolutely right. McFarlane doesn't half waffle, a lot of beep. You are absolutely right, so I'm going to stop waffling and get off. Okay, until next time, folks, thanks for watching. Cheerio.